Get a little bit more information and perspective on Mr. Al-Assad's comments from our own Arwa Damon, standing by there in Beirut, Lebanon. Arwa, what else did we hear of significance from the president?
Well, it's quite interesting that he's continuing to make the argument, at the very least, that he himself was not directly responsible for that chemical attack. Again, making the argument that it was the rebels who fired off these chemical weapons themselves. And he was also issuing something of a not-so-subtle warning, saying that if the U.S. should strike, there would be repercussions, not going into any specific details as to what those repercussions would be, but making it very clear that there would be some sort of fallout in the region, saying, look, we're not the only government in the region, and it's not just governments who are key players in the region. There are a number of significant other key players who could carry out some sort of retaliatory attack should the U.S. strike. So we again have a very defiant president, a president who's denying any involvement, and a president who is also saying, look, if you decide to strike Syria, that is not going to stay contained to the Syrian battlefield. It is going to somehow, in some way, shape, or form, expand beyond it, Michael.
It's interesting, I suppose, that he said there was no evidence that his regime used chemical weapons. Not that they didn't use them, but there was no evidence of that. I suppose when you're listening to Mr. Al-Assad, you have to read between the lines a little bit. But what do you think is the subtleness behind what he was saying there?
Well, he was also saying, according to Charlie Rose, who did the interview, as reporting that if the Syrian government had chemical weapons, not denying or saying that they do in fact have them, but if they had them, that they would still in the possession of the central government, meaning that, again, as he is consistently speaking in two different tones, saying that if we have them, and I'm not saying that we really do or not, we are the ones who do control them, insinuating that if, in fact, according to his logic, the rebels had carried out this attack, presumably those chemical weapons would have come from another source, not the government's stockpile itself. The issue with that line of logic, though, is that that would mean that the rebels had somehow obtained and developed the capability to launch a very complex attack, because the attack that happened was not a single incident. There were numerous attacks to the east of Damascus, but also to the southwest as well, which would mean that the rebels have a level of sophistication, capability, weaponry that at this point in time, no one really believes them to actually possess, Michael.
Arwa, thanks so much. Arwa Damon there in Lebanon.